It is the fourth day of Russian invasion in Ukraine. Russian forces and armored vehicles are advancing into major Ukrainian cities. Diplomacy took a backseat, with Russia escalating its offensive. First, by recognizing rebel Ukrainian regions of Donetsk and Luhansk as independent, and then sending in troops on the Ukrainian soil. The Kremlin has maintained that it is open to talks. However, it has warned Ukraine that its military operations will not stop for talks, but would be suspended during potential talks. Russia has said that its delegation was ready to meet Ukrainian officials. Russia chose the Belarusian city of Gomel to hold talks. Now, in the latest, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has rejected Moscow's push to stage talks in Belarus, as he called the Russian ally a launchpad for invading forces.
If hostile actions have not come from your territory, it would have been possible to talk in Minsk, your city. When you were neutral, we talked in Minsk. We met many times. And this is the right thing to do. It's true. It's how we should talk, as neighbors. But right now you have not made your most important choice. And it must depend on you. Not on Russia, not on Ukraine, not on the US, but on Belarusian people.
Zelensky also says Minsk itself was complicit in the Russian invasion. He, however, said that Ukraine is leaving the door open to negotiations in other locations.
That is why we say no to Minsk. Other cities can be the place for talks. Of course, we want peace. We want to meet. We want to end the war. Warsaw, Bratislava, Budapest, Istanbul, Baku. We have offered all of them to Russia. And we agree on any other city in a country missiles are not going from. This is the only way the talks can be honest and lead to the end of the war.
Russia's strongest ally, China, has also urged Moscow to negotiate. Earlier, in his first phone call with his Russian counterpart Vladimir Putin since Moscow attacked Kiev, Chinese President Xi Jinping reportedly said that Cold War mindsets should be abandoned and security concerns of different nations must be respected. Britain has also said that there could be no talks with Russia while it has its troops deployed in Ukraine. British Foreign Minister Liz Truss said that the country has drawn up a hit list of Russian oligarchs, and every few weeks the government would target their private jets, their properties and possessions. Moscow says Kiev's forces must surrender and the country must agree to become a neutral territory. Russian ground forces have launched a multi-pronged invasion into Ukraine and have been facing resistance from the Ukrainian troops. Earlier today, Russian President Vladimir Putin released a video message thanking Russia's special forces for fulfilling what he calls their heroic duty in Ukraine. Well, for more on this, investigative journalist Tanya Kozureva is joining us live from Kiev. Tanya, welcome to WION.
Hi, nice to meet you.
What's the current situation in Kiev? We have been reporting of shelling in the outskirts of the capital. We have also been reporting that the capital is relatively deserted. Is there enough manpower and resource to defend Kiev?
So the situation in Kiev right now is very complicated. For many reasons. One of the reasons, it's a curfew. So it's all over Kiev and people cannot leave their houses. They figured out about the curfew a few hours before it started. So many of them couldn't buy enough food to stay at home for 3 days, you know. And generally speaking in Kiev, it's like right now it looked like a humanitarian crisis because people barely can find any food and petrol right now. And many of them cannot leave the city, and they stuck in the city, which, you know, where there is no cafe open right now, where there's no bars open, like everything is closed, and it's almost impossible to get any food. And some people are spending like days. They got into the shelter yesterday evening, and they have to spend there 3 days. So you can imagine there will be no shower, there will be no food and nothing. So they basically entrapped in the subway, where it's even there is no toilet, you know. So it's very very sad, and it's horrible situation right now, and it's like it's a civilian people, you know. They are not fighters. They were living their life, a very peaceful life, and I think it's international crime to treat people like that.
And away from this humanitarian crisis, Tanya, Ukrainian civilians and even politicians are taking up arms to protect their country. Explain to our viewers why civilians are resorting to do this.
Generally speaking, I can tell you that Ukraine got the independence only 30 years ago, but we have, you know, many centuries of fighting for our independence, and it's something that was, you know, something that we got from our from Ukrainian writers. This is something that were reported in the press. This is something that we got written in our history, you know, that Ukrainians are fighting for their identity for centuries right now, you know. And this war, which is started eight years ago with Russia, you know, this war basically, this is something that strike into the mind of every Ukrainian, and every Ukrainian right now feel very much identify with Ukraine, not with Russia, you know. So right now, I think this is the war for the independence. People, you know, Ukraine changed over last 8 years. We got a lot of anti-corruptional facilities. We have anti-corruptional court, we have anti-corruptional prosecutors, detectives, and so on. So we are fighting corruption here in Ukraine against Ukrainian, you know, corrupt officials.
Right.
And like we have a free press, and media can report about everybody. And we cannot see the same in Russia. So people in Ukraine, they got this feeling of democracy, you know. They don't want to lose it, and this is very important for them to fight for the democracy, you know, for the democratical values that they have, you know. And nobody wants to lose this. So everybody, you know, like all the people, civilians, they are taking the guns just to protect not only their own lives, but their values, you know. And this is very important, and it's all over the country. So it's not like, you know, Zelensky himself decided to fight back. It's something that all Ukrainians want, or most of them, you know, like people want to protect their values. So this is the war, you know, that was declared by Russia, and we didn't start it. And we, like, I can say that Ukrainians and Ukraine is a very peaceful country, and we want more than anything. We want peace, and we don't want this war. But, you know, if it takes to protect the democracy and democratical values and the freedom that we have, and the freedom we had last 8 years, you know, like everybody here in Ukraine, like you cannot believe. Yesterday, like we were traveling from the Kiev to Lviv, so we took the car, and we were trying to get out from Kiev because it's impossible right now to report in Kiev, because we, like, if it's a curfew, you cannot report anything. Right now they're trying to issue the press credentials so people can get out, like press, and can film something. But before that, we were just spending, you know, like days in the bomb shelter, and it was like it was impossible even to call somebody and to get some information. So when we were passing by like all the small cities or the small villages all over the Ukraine, there was like a regular citizens who were trying to build barricades, you know, and they were trying to build this checkpoints and block posts just to, to prevent movement of the heavy tanks or heavy artillery through Ukrainian roads. So it's like, it's not only military who is fighting for the freedom. It's every Ukrainian.
It's the people of Ukraine.
Yes, exactly.
Tanya, I just want to ask you, has the West abandoned Ukraine? And if not, what are the other options left for countries like the US and allies of Ukraine left to save the country?
Well, I keep saying in every of my interviews that, this is, we, like Ukrainians, need a support here of the whole community, of the whole world, economically speaking and sanctions speaking. So, like, I think the only way to stop this war with Russia, it's to stop Russian economy, and every country has to think how to do it. I think in India there are a lot of Russians who are located there and who loves to spend money in India. And we know that Goa is a very popular Russian, destination. So if India will think how to stop Russians from fighting Ukrainians, it has to consider some sanctions too, economical sanctions, and like any kind of sanctions that can stop Russian from spending their money all over the world.
Tanya,
probably.
Tanya, sorry to interject you, but the sanctions are already happening. We have the West imposing serious economic sanctions to Russia. Do you think that these sanctions will deter the Kremlin or will deter Putin?
I'm saying that while the war is ongoing, these sanctions is not enough. I think the West and every country in the world have to think about the sanctions every day. Like, what kind of sanctions can they impose? I think every country has to think about it, not only US or UK. It's every country duty, as well as Indian government. I think Indian government has to consider the sanctions too.
Right. Okay, finally, Tanya, before I let you go, there are claims that Russia is trying to infiltrate Kiev. If at all they are successful to seize the capital, what significance will that have?
Yes, Kiev right now, I think, is one of the main targets of Russia, and clearly. As we know from the U.S. intelligence report, Russians are trying to change the government in Ukraine. They want the president who will be more pro-Russian, who will control Ukraine, and who will be more loyal for people of Russia or for President Putin. And so this is one of the most important targets right now. But at the same time, we know that the war is happening all over the Ukraine. So it's not only in Kiev, it's a southern direction, it's north direction, it's eastern direction, clearly. So we are seeing like full-scale invasion of Russia on the territory of Ukraine. So we see many people who already died. We can see this humanitarian crisis. I'm right now in Lviv, and and we are seeing here like 30 kilometers long line of the cars who are trying to leave the country. They're trying to cross the border with Poland and to start their new life there. And also, if you will go to the train station here in Lviv, you will see the people who are just, they're throwing away their luggages, and they're desperately to try to get to the train, which is going to Poland. You know, it's a free train, but there is a limit of places. I mean, it's a limit of tickets, not the tickets, but you know, it's just it's a small train, so not everybody can fit. You know.
Yeah, it's a desperate situation in Ukraine, indeed.
Yeah.
Well, Tanya Kozureva, thank you very much for your time. We'll have to leave it there. Thank you very much for your time and for talking to WION today.
Of course.
WION is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news on the move.